Greyhound asks U.S. government for emergency funds to transport migrants. Los Angeles Reuters Greyhound Lines, a bus company crucial to transport newly arrived migrants to the United States, has asked the U.S. government for emergency funding to deal with the unexpected increase in migrant release at the U.S. Mexico border, according to a letter seen by Reuters. The letter sent to the Department of Homeland Security (DHS) Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Wednesday is another sign of a potential rise in order. President Joe Biden's administration is ready, scrambling to deal with lots of families and unaccompanied children. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has seen more migrant crossings in recent weeks as new hope emerges among migrants that Biden will unravel the restrictive migration policies of his predecessor, Donald Trump. It said it apprehended 4,500 migrants on Wednesday, about the same number as the daily average in May 2019, peak of the surge in migration at the border. The letter, signed by Greyhound CEO David S. Leach and provided to Reuters by Democratic Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar, also asks that migration authorities provide 100% assurance that no migrant released who may ride a Greyhound bus have COVID-19, and asks that they arrive at bus terminals carrying proof of a negative test. U.S. Customs and Border Protection does not currently test migrants before release. In recent weeks, it has released thousands of migrant families from custody, Cuellar said, mostly in Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Non-profit shelters in some cities along the border have attempted to test arriving migrants, but the system is inconsistent and often dependent on donations. Greyhound service has been decimated by coronavirus, that letter said, with furloughs cutting the number of available drivers and companies' capacity reduced by 60% since the start of the pandemic. This could have very detrimental impact on our collective ability to transport migrants to their destinations. In the U.S., Leach wrote. The letter asks that DHS provide emergency federal funding to the company for drivers and buses that will transport migrants. Does not specify the amount it is seeking. Greyhound, the largest intercity, is owned by British transport operator First Group plc. Its buses have been essential to transport migrants from the border destination during previous periods of high migration releases. In 2019, immigration authorities dropped migrants off at the bus stations along notice. Non-profit organizations booked tickets for migrants to help them reach their destinations. Greyhound's First Group and DHS did not immediately respond to requests for comment. There you have it, man. These people are coming over to basically replace black voters, black Democrat voters, because that's who he's going to get. Of course, they're going to vote for Biden. That's what's going to happen. Okay, this is all a plan to keep them in power. To give Biden a vote for the next 4 years. That's what's going to happen. And a lot of people do not see it. You thought Trump was bad? Biden is going to be just as bad. Both of them are for, how would I say it? The jabs. And both of them are going to be for the jabs. All right. And Biden is the one who is going to be for basically replacing the black vote. Resources are scarce right now, okay, due to COVID. And they're trying to get as much resources as possible coming here. Jobs, affordable housing, that's what they're going to get. Okay. And here's something that people have not really looked at. And I'm going to show it right now. This is heavily in Spanish culture. which is not really looked at. Okay, because guess what? Like many other ethnicities, they want help when they come over here, but they have a very strong hatred towards other ethnic groups, especially blacks. Mexicans admit they're racist. If only we could. Stop the presses. There's racism in Mexico. 10% of Mexico is gachupin, which means loosely translated as white, an Aztec word meaning a man wearing shoes with pins or spurs. There were no horses in the Western Hemisphere where the Spanish arrived, so there were no spurs. 60% of Mexico is mixed Indian and white, and 30% pure Amerindian. Mexico News Daily published last year an in-depth article about the recent studies conducted on Mexican racism. No honest Mexican can deny the fact that of Mexican racism. Multiple studies confirm that beyond any doubt. In one conducted by the National Institute of Statistics and Geography, the study determined that skin color directly influences how much education is achieved and what kind of employment an individual is offered. Yet it is not the only study ever conducted in Mexico that shows that racial differences heavily influences Mexican society. No study was needed between 1519 and 1821 when the Spanish ran Mexico with racial codes that organized the Spanish Western Hemisphere into more than a dozen different racial classifications, starting with those born in Spain. The Peninsulars, they were number one. The children born in the New World, the Carrillos, were number two, and number three was the part Spanish, part Indian, the Mestizo. The penultimate category was the Zamba, half black, half Indian. Last was 100% Indian or Indio. The only people who could own land and conduct government affairs were in number one and number two classifications. There were no voting, as Spain was a monarchy, not a democracy. Governance limited to Spanish-born white men and their male children left much to be desired. No wonder then that a fed-up Catholic priest, Miguel Hidalgo y Castilla, enamored with American independence and democratic government, loudly pronounced death to the bad government, death to the Gachapinis, to his parish at midnight, September 16th, 1810. The churchgoers rushed out and attacked Spanish-owned businesses and government property, starting more than 10 years of war for independence. In retrospect, his followers included Mestizo and Indians who were fed up with the overt racism imposed by Spanish-born and their children on them, and on Africans whom Spain brought to Mexico as slaves. Father Hidalgo was himself a Criollo without a drop of Indian blood. One view of modern Mexico is that the racial society Father Hidalgo detested still exists, though it is not official policy as it was when Hidalgo rebelled. In 1954, then U.S. Chief Justice Earl Warren and his colleagues on the Supreme Court included in their landmark Brown versus Board of Education decision ruling against separate but equal schools. The results of a study that measured black children choosing white dolls over black dolls because the white dolls were considered prettier and nicer. A similar doll study was done in Mexico a few years ago and is included in Mexico Daily Report about the current state of racism there. It found that Mexican children of all colors chose white dolls for the same reason that American black children chose white dolls over black dolls almost 70 years ago in the United States. Racism in Mexico is not news to Mexicans. The Mexican National Council to Prevent Discrimination has done a study that shows 20% of Mexicans are uncomfortable with the color of their own skin. 25% say they have been discriminated against because of their appearance. 55% recognize that there's discrimination based on skin color, and 23% admit they would not want to live with a person of a different race or culture. In a similar study in 2016, the National Autonomous University asks whether skin color influenced the way people are treated. 51% of respondents answered yes, with 33.4% replying yes in part. Among the study's respondents, 72% agreed that racism exists in Mexico, and 47% said Indians and at least 68 Indian dialects are spoken in Mexico don't have the same job opportunities as other Mexicans. Surprise, there's racism in Mexico, and the people there recognize it. Surprise, there's racism in the United States, but people here mostly avoid the subject. So this is what you're getting when these immigrants from South America come over, they're going to bring that racism here. Okay. And they have a very nasty way of how they treat blacks. Okay. That's what's going to happen. And they're going to vote Democrat. Okay? And they're gonna show their racist ways when they get here. Skin color is important in the U.S. despite widespread denial. It has been since 1619 when the first African slave walked off a boat at Jamestown. But American racism wasn't always against blacks. A white racist victimizes anyone, even if the victim is demographically white. American founding father Benjamin Franklin, for instance, set unlimited limits of American racism against people of other races and ethnicities. With this observation, in 1751, German immigrants will shortly be so numerous in British America as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never doubt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion. Mexicans admit to their racism. If we only could. Sad. This is coming, man. This is going to be an interesting 4 years. A very interesting 4 years. Let me show you another article. Here we go. Yale MIT study. 22 million, not 11 million, undocumented immigrants in the U.S. They're bringing more here. Bringing more. And like I said before, the resources are very scarce. There's going to be a lot of fighting here in America. Not just amongst blacks, but amongst other ethnic groups. For jobs, for a lot of things. The undocumented population in the United States could be twice as large as most commonly used estimate, according to a research study published Friday in the scientific journal PLOS One. The paper, led by Mohammed M. Fazil Zarandi, a researcher at Yale and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, estimates there are 22.1 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. Fazil Zarandi's study compared and follows and outlaws immigrants as well as demographic data. According to the resort, the number of undocumented immigrants could be as low as 16.5 million or as high as 29.1 million. We combine these data using demographic model that follows a very simple logic. Edwin Kaplan, a co-author of the report, told Yale Insights, the population today is equal to the initial population plus everyone came in minus everyone who went out. It's that simple. Most previous estimates based on the U.S. Census Bureau Annual American Community Survey, ACS, placed the undocumented population at around 11 million people. ACS is generated annually through interviews with about 3.5 million people. You find it's based on one very specific survey and possibly an approach that has some difficulties. So we went in and just took a very different approach. Jonathan Feinstein, co-author, told Yale Insights. Still, the new study found similarities in growth patterns of the undocumented population to the ACS reports of the past 2 decades. Most immigration researchers have reported a plateau in growth of that population since 2007, spurred mainly by the decrease in the Mexican illegal immigration in the United States. The reduction in illegal crossings by Mexican citizens coincided with an increase in illegal immigration from Central America and Asia, but the overall undocumented population has leveled off and possibly slightly decreased. The Pew Research Center, which provides regular updates on immigration statistics, based in part on ACS numbers, estimated last year that the undocumented population dropped to 11.3 million from a high of 12.2 million. The Yale study, which goes far back as 1990, found that the same upward and downward trajectory as the ACS studies, with the undocumented population ballooning through 1990s and plateauing after 2007. The trajectory is the same. We see the same patterns happening, but there's just understating the actual number of people who have made it here, said Fazil Zarandi. Researchers emphasize the new number does not imply a growth in illegal immigration, but a long-standing miscount of existing undocumented immigrants. We wouldn't want people to walk away from this research thinking that suddenly there's a large influx happening now, said Feinstein. it's really something that happened in the past and maybe was not properly accounted or documented. Researchers also noted if the undocumented population is twice as high as previous estimates, that means the incidence of criminality among undocumented immigrants is half as high as previously reported. We have the same number of crimes, but now spread over twice as many people as we believed before, which right away means that the crime rate among undocumented immigrants is essentially half whatever was previously believed, said Kaplan. So that's another thing too. When they come over here and they find out there's not many jobs here due to COVID, okay, crime is going to go through the roof because they got to eat. Of course, they'll get housing because you got to house them. All right. But how are they going to feed themselves? When you don't have jobs, crime is going to be the only way to get what you need. But many whites dislike blacks too. Is that how you're basing your approach to funding groups of people? The point of the matter is, all right, no. What I'm trying to tell you is you're bringing people over here at a time when resources are scarce. And what do you think is going to happen? Plus, these people have their own prejudices. I don't know where you've been lately, but in you have in Hispanic culture, Mexican, Dominican, even Puerto Rican, that they don't like black people. Okay? There's even, Spanish civil rights leaders, civil rights attorney, okay? Gus Garcia said that he sees that blacks don't get, their fair share of rights and resources, but he doesn't think they should get it. And he thinks they shouldn't get what he's getting. I don't know what to tell you, but if you do research on some Hispanic people, civil rights leaders and prominent Spanish figures, they don't like blacks. I'm not talking about white people right now. We already know there's racist white people. I'm not saying every white person's racist. I'm not saying every Mexican is racist, but you have them. You have those people who are racist immigrants, and they're going to bring their prejudices here, and they don't like black people. And right, Kelly, people, they're cutting off people coming in here the right way. And crime is going to go up when there's no jobs. When there's a scarcity of jobs, crime is going to go up. It's already going up through the roof in certain parts of America. And that's what's going to happen. More. Plus, there are gangs, and they don't have ways, if they not able to get a job, there are gangs who are gonna be their family to get money. This is common sense. And that's how it's going to be. Like I said, this is going to be some interesting 4 years. Very interesting 4 years. Because Biden's already setting up his re-election in his back pocket. So tell me what you think in the comments. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please share the information as well. Later. I mean, Kelly Kibo, it's just true. It's just true. Why is the president sending all these immigrants here and there's a scarcity of jobs? Only thing I could think of any logically, he's trying to get his re-election in. That's it. He's already screwed over He's already screwed over Black Lives Matter. All right. He's already screwed over those civil rights leaders. Talk to them like they're nothing. His inner slave master came out. So I can't really use them anymore. He's already screwed over Patrisse Cullors. You know how long she's asked to have a sit down with Biden and Kamala Harris after they've done their bidding? So he has to look for another supply of voters. Survey says, get those immigrants over here. All right, enough of me, what I've said. Tell me what you think in the comments. Like, share, comment, and subscribe.